So, if anybody else would like to follow Greta Christina, I will totally give up my spot. Okay. For those of you who frequent these type of events, you know that a lot of talks are usually thinly veiled advertisements for people's books. I don't have a book, but I have a blog. Whatwouldjtdo.net? Yes. I also have been tweeting this. In fact, if you go back on Twitter for like the last 10 minutes, it's like, oh my god, whenever Greta stops, you can hear a pin drop. I'm going to hide. I also blog for Atheism Resource, the owner of which Adam Brown is right back there. He's waving. It's a great site. Check it out. See if this thing works. Sweet! I learned how to use PowerPoint. The We Are Atheism campaign. I'm a big supporter of this. Something that's important to the atheist movement is the gay rights movement. And the gay rights movement is something that has come from a point of being a thoroughly despised minority to a point now of being the majority of the country. And a big part of the way they've done that is by fostering an environment where more and more gay people can come out of the closet. And so more and more Americans are realizing for the first time that not only do they know gay people, but that they like gay people. And the same can be true of atheism. This is a very, very important project, and I want to urge everybody here to give it a shot. Look at that, it moves. Awesome. I work for the Secular Student Alliance. I guess it's a thinly veiled advertisement for all the shit I do. There are a lot of atheist organizations, but there's only one that really touches each and every one of them, and that's this one. If you want to know who's going to be in charge of American atheists tomorrow, or who's going to be the executive director of the Secular Coalition for America tomorrow, or leader of the American Humanist Association tomorrow, it's going to be someone who comes out of one of our affiliates. The ARIS report that keeps getting thrown around says that 29% of the 18 to 29-year-old demographic identifies with the none category. It's the biggest demographic we have, and in the next 5 or 6 years, we're all going to be graduated and taking over the real world and working on the next generation. And if that's not enough, Charlie Sheen will sell you on it.
That's good.
Okay. For the most part, I think that atheists are about the most reasonable people out there. I certainly think they've reached the most reasonable conclusion. So it feels very odd to be sitting in a room full of atheists about to give you a talk on the primacy of reason. But even amongst us, I don't think a lot of us give reason the deference it's due. And so I hate criticizing my own, but then again, that's something else the atheist movement has so right, that religion has so wrong. I mean, just think of how much more free time we'd have if the Catholic Church really did police pedophiles. So even though I hate talking to you about this, I'm going to. And I want to start with the relevance of reason to morality. And I want to start with the story of Madeline Newman. She's the 11-year-old there on the right, chalking the sidewalk, and her parents, Dale and Alani, are there on the bottom. Her parents belonged to a sect of Christianity that believed, quite literally, the words of Jeremiah 17, that to trust in the wisdom of man over the wisdom of God is a betrayal to God. And so when Madeline fell ill, they didn't take her to the hospital. And as her condition worsened, they prayed and prayed. And as her condition got worse over a period of weeks, they invited more people to pray. They actually sent out an email to the church that said, we need emergency prayers for Madeline. And this continued up until the point, what? This is not doing at all what you said. There we go. No, go back. Awesome. And it got to the point where Madeline died of undiagnosed diabetes. Now, if the word evil is to have any meaningful definition, these two parents are it. And they killed a child. And they killed their own child. But there's something very important to note here. Their nature and their intentions were not the problem. It's not, as Christianity says, that there's something corrupted about our nature that makes us evil inherently. They loved Madeline, and they wanted their daughter to get well as much as I would have, or as much as any of you would have wanted to care for their child. They were, in that sense, good people, not very different from any of us. The problem was that they had bad ideas about the operation of the universe that took their good intentions and twisted it into something that became murder. So the whole point here is, any person with kind or good intentions has a moral obligation to try and be reasonable, to make sure that their good intentions manifest themselves in the beneficial results that we're searching for. And to this end, unreason corrupts everything that humanity is. It takes our good intentions and ruins them. You cannot read that. Oh, onward and upward. In every other walk of life, we've come to the conclusion that irrationality is something to be avoided. But there's one institution that tells us that not only is it okay to be unreasonable, but that we need to be unreasonable. That there's penalties if we're not unreasonable and rewards if we are. And that is religion. And it's significant not only on an individual level, but on a societal level. And think of all the moral questions that are represented in politics. It's like Victor Stenger says, in the abortion debate, both sides agree that killing a human being is wrong. They simply disagree over what a human being is. And whoever's right about that fact, about when humanity starts, they get to be the arbiters of what is moral. The problem here is that we have both of these sides arguing over who is correct morally. But because, as Jen McCright said, there's this kind of bubble around religion where we don't feel like we can criticize it, we're only saying we're right morally, but nobody wants to have the discussion about who is right about the God question. And this paralyzes our moral discourse. It keeps us from ever reconciling our moral differences, and it results in all this political non-movement that we have right now. The solution? Start criticizing it. I mean, what is the other option? We can be nice and wait for them to abdicate power, but we've been doing this for a millennia now. It's like Greta said, the atheist movement is now doing very well. And I don't think it's merely a coincidence that it's doing very well now that we've begun to be brazen and open and forthright about what we are and where we stand in regards to the God question. Is this running on a Mac? Because it would give me even more reason to hate them. This is Jen McCright said, 31% of Americans are biblical literalists. It's not merely enough to tell them that we're wrong or that we have contrary beliefs. We have to find some way to get at their beliefs and convince them that they're wrong about the operation of the universe. Otherwise, we're always going to disagree. So how are we going to do that? First, by killing Steve Jobs. And burning the Macintosh Corporation to the ground. That is supposed to read the inescapability of reason in English. And it's, what I mean by the inescapability of reason is that one of the tenets of Christianity is that we need to choose to believe in Jesus in order to be saved. And not only is this a flagrantly immoral idea, but it's also impossible. The human brain simply does not work that way. The human brain is an engine that generates a map of reality based upon what facts are inside it. It's beyond our power to change that. And if you disagree with me, try climbing up to, say, the top of this building and convincing yourself through force of will that gravity doesn't work. There's not a single person in this room that could do it. We don't choose our beliefs. They're determined by whatever facts are in our brain. So let me point something out to you real quick. If you don't believe in God, raise your hand. You find the one theist to make fun of. No, I'm joking. Leave your hand in the air if you don't believe in God. No, leave your hand in the air. If you don't believe in God, leave your hand in the air. Now, leave your hand in the air if you once believed in God. All right? Now, for those of you who once believed in God, leave your hand in the air if an argument from some atheist, whether Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, or a friend of yours, helped you escape that belief. And look around the room. This is not an inconsequential number. And it's important to note this, you can put your hands down, is that this is the power of reason upon a human mind. And it's important to know this because so often we hear from other atheists, why bother? What is the point of discussing things with religious people when they're closed-minded and it'll never make a difference? To which the only appropriate response is horseshit. It does make a difference. It has to make a difference. There's no way for it to not make a difference. So we have to find some way to get at them. But there's still lots of religious people. If reason is so powerful, how do you explain this? And it's explained because religions have become very good at stopping reason from getting into the minds of their followers. And there are several arguments about this that get dropped consistently. I want to touch on them. And the first is hope. By assaulting my religion, you are taking away my hope. To which we have to ask the question, what is hope? There are plenty of things that assail humanity. Take a hurricane bearing down on a city. What is hope in this situation? Is it to sit in the basement and hope the hurricane misses? Or even sillier, to pretend the hurricane isn't there? No. Hope in this case is to apply human reason to the extent that we're able to produce things like satellite imagery, stronger buildings, ways that we can really alter the universe to be more in our favor. And the same is true of life. Hope is not imagining that it will never end. It's coming up with medical technologies to destroy diseases and to extend our life on this planet so far as we're able. And hope is not imagining that the same God that conceived of cancer somehow wishes us to live forever. Hope can only be found through reason. Without reason, the best you can come up with is cowardice and delusion, which is precisely what passes for hope under the banner of religion. The next, reality. How often do we hear this? The problem with scientists is that they take the wonder and beauty out of everything by trying to analyze it. Is that somehow without the fantasy, life stops being beautiful. And I always think of a personal story at this point. When I was a child, I was one of those people who was religious, and I loved the stars. I spent literally several nights out of the week on a blanket in my backyard looking up at the stars. And as a Christian, I thought to myself, God created these. And in some small way, appreciating their beauty means that I'm connecting with God. And it was overpowering. It was beautiful to me. And here I am a decade later, and I understand the mechanics of star formation. When I look up at the sky, I don't see patches of emptiness between the stars. I see logarithmic functions that help a brain incapable of appreciating the vastness of the universe to start having some conceptualization of just how far apart those stars are. And to say that it's overpowering would be really to undersell it. I can't imagine what it would look like through the eyes of an astronomer. And I realized that back when I was a kid, I had given a name to my ignorance of the stars, and I had called it God. And that by thinking it was so beautiful then, I was really attaching beauty to my own ignorance. And I wonder how many other religious people do the same thing. If you want beauty out of the world, if you want to connect to the universe around you, you must have reason. So when religious people tell us that we're trying to take the beauty away from the world, tell them no. Religion is doing that, and the ignorance that comes along with it. We're trying to hand it to you. The consistency of reason. Something that gets said a lot when you assault religion is that reason is different for different people. For one person, reason might work one way, and for another person, it might work a completely different way. Also horseshit. Complete, unadulterated horseshit. Reason is consistent. But when different facts get plugged in, you get different conclusions. For instance, two people being completely reasonable, with one who is informed about basic astronomy, would arrive at two different conclusions. Namely, one would believe that our sun was not a star. Without a basic understanding of the facts of astronomy, you can be completely reasonable and reach that conclusion. So we need the proper facts to plug into reason to reach the proper conclusion, even though reason is consistent. But we can look at it another way. Consider for a moment that there are a tremendous number of religious people in positions of either power or leadership who hate us. I mean, in their ideology, religion, specifically theirs, is the most important thing in the universe. And so anything that doesn't support it, like us, must either be opposed or eliminated. The corollary to that is that the best thing for America is religion and God's protection. So therefore the unreligious are also unpatriotic and must either be opposed or eliminated for the good of the country. They are frightened of us. What Greta said is 100% true. They're afraid of the atheists, and they hate us. I mean, not all of them hate us. I mean, Mother Teresa didn't hate us. There's lots of moderate Christians that don't hate us. But you would be wrong if you don't believe that a tremendous number in positions of power, or that a tremendous number in positions of power are willing to pander to those who do hate us. So the effect is really the same. And Michelle Bachmann hates us. Jim Boehner hates us. Sarah Palin hates us. The Tea Party faithful hate us. The Catholic League hates us. The 700 Club hates us. And the list could go on and on and on. Now, I have Christian friends who would never intentionally do me harm, and I want to be fair to them. But all the ones I just mentioned, and many, many more, would take every imaginable right away from me. And they would take every imaginable right away from you. I mean, if you don't think that the Michelle Bachmans of this world would have us in chains if left unchecked, then you have not been listening. But why? It's not because they're particularly evil at all. It's because if what they believe about the operation of the universe is true, then we are truly monsters. I mean, we're not merely murderers. A murderer kills a person once. No, we're the ones with the ability to send their friends and neighbors into an eternity of dying over and over and over again in a pit of fire. We're the ones who eagerly do the same to children. If what they believe about the operation of the universe is true, is there anybody in this room who could really blame them for doing anything and everything to protect children from that fate? The scary thing in this particular situation is, this is not a fantasy to them. This is not a hope to them. This is the way they really perceive reality. And the even scarier thing is that they're acting reasonably. They're acting compassionately. They're acting reasonably and compassionately within the context of their beliefs, but they are acting reasonably. And that is the whole point. This is the corrupting power that bad facts have over good intentions and even over reason itself. The reason is consistent, but the facts make all the changes. So not only do we have a moral obligation to be reasonable, each and every human being on this planet has a moral obligation to be careful and cautious about how they acquire facts, so that their good intentions don't become twisted into madness. And this is a moral obligation that each and every religious person fails. Now, there's a lot of people in this movement who will say that it's somehow improper to say at every opportunity that the facts upon which these people base their entire worldview are wrong. And there's even more people who will say that it's somehow offensive to openly despise the institutions of faith and religion that tell us frequently that holding ideas for bad reasons or the acquisition of bad facts is a virtue to be applauded. I'm not sure how many people in this room have seen me speak before, but you may have noticed the distinct absence of both jokes, lolcats, and memes in my talk, which is a departure from my usual style. And that's because this is not funny. This is not sad. This is sinister in the most extreme sense of the word, and not nearly enough of us treat it that way. We sometimes laugh at these things when people die because of unreason. On snowflake religions, remember the guy in Norway who killed a bunch of people? What was the response? But that's not my religion. It's like Greta said, who cares? It doesn't matter if it's your religion. Each and every religious person fails their obligation to be reasonable. Have you ever talked to a religious person and beat down their arguments consistently? It always boils back down to faith, whether they're a religious liberal, religious moderate, religious fundamentalist. They all believe they're privy to the will of God for the exact same reasons, and they're all equally wrong. This is why religious people, in the war of ideas, whenever there's religion involved, have a very difficult time being our ally. Because their reasons are equally bad, they've abdicated all power to say that other religious people are wrong. They can say that their beliefs are different, but they can't say that they're reasonably wrong, or more likely to be incorrect than the religious liberal themselves. We need to stop taking their religion is not my religion as a suitable excuse to stop criticizing them. Agreeing to disagree. When all other avenues have been exhausted, we'll just agree to disagree. No. So long as we're agreeing to disagree, so long as irrationality is allowed to fly under some banner unopposed, humanity is being hamstrung, and we're not reconciling our moral differences. Remember this the next time someone wants to agree to disagree. And the last way they get around this is by actually arguing against the use of reason. And there's two that come up fairly consistently. The first one, your religion is science. You have faith in science. Scientific beliefs are a matter of faith. And I just saw Jen McCrite, the biologist in the room, almost vomit blood. This is an attempt to create some kind of false equivalence. If all beliefs are a matter of faith, they're all equally reasonable to believe in. Horseshit. Science and reason operate under only one assumption, and that's that the universe operates under a set of rules. And if this is true, we should be able to test it, and we do. Every time we monitor the speed of a dropped stone. Every time we throw a satellite to the edge of the solar system and hit an incredibly small target. We confirm that assumption that the universe operates under a set of rules, and at that point, it stops being a matter of faith. This could not be more different from religion. This argument is horrible. Remember the importance of reason the next time someone gives a bad argument like this, and you just don't feel like dealing with it. In order to live in a world governed by reason, religion has to die. And it's a pain in the ass. Each of us who has talked with a religious person knows it. Push them on this. And this is another one I got from a philosophy grad student. You can tell because of the polysyllabic words. Where and how does reason exist in a deterministic ontology? They do this. That is, if everything that happens in the brain is determined by unreasoning neurochemical reactions, then how is human reason reasonable? First off, if you're going to try and convince someone that reason is not reliable, trying to use reason to do it is not the best way to sell your cause. If reason really doesn't work that way, what else do you have for me? Yeah. So this is lame to the power of lame on the surface, but it's coming up more and more often. I'm a debater, so I have my thumb to the pulse of these things. Computers. Completely unfeeling, unthinking, yet reasonable. Perform logical functions. Can evolve to assess their environment. I don't need to know how they do it. I only need to know that it can happen, and computers do. But those aren't living, which I guess is some weird distinction. So check out this guy. P.Z. Myers isn't here to turn biology into some weird, long, extended metaphor. And Jen, the biologist, didn't use any biology in her talk. So this is a tapeworm. Living organism, insofar as life has any real consistent meaning. Lacks a brain. It just has a bunch of ganglion cells in that top part there. Yet performs reasonable actions in regards to its own survival. Each and every tapeworm consistently finds creative ways to get into its host, performs reasonable actions to keep itself alive. It lacks a brain, it lacks the neurochemical processes. Is it so hard to believe that our own brains, given millions of years of evolution, could operate under the same principle? No. Like I said, I don't need to know how it happens. I just need to know that it does. And it does. A lot of times we just want to treat religion like it's wrong. We want to treat religious people like they're simply mistaken, but they're really trying. But these ways to dodge reason wouldn't exist if they were really trying. Most religious people treat their conclusion as though it's more important than the methodology used to reach that conclusion. And we need to start hitting them on that. Reason is the way we become connected to the universe, to the world around us. It's why we survive in a universe that would kill us if we stepped off of Earth, or even off of our comfortable little piece of it. It's how we connect with one another. It's fucking how we leave the house in the morning. It's our lifeblood. And reason is everything. And religion is a poison. I mean, just because it's not lethal every time it's swallowed doesn't mean it's not a poison. And it doesn't mean that we need to keep it around. Greta was right when she said, there are lots of beliefs that cause people to do, the good people to do bad things. It's not just religion. But there's one thing that sews each and every one of those beliefs together. And that each and every belief that causes good people to do bad things is unreasonable, or based on bad facts about the world. It's not merely about trying to save gay people from the oppression of a culture that hates them. It's not about protecting the Damon Fowlers of the world. It's about creating a world in which human beings can really realize their potential, in which human intellect is a virtue, not just believing the proper things. And even as atheists, and even as rationalists, sometimes we laugh about it, and sometimes we don't treat it nearly as important as we should. Reason is everything. And we need to start treating it that way. Thank you.